In the vast silence of the grand hall, light from thousands of stars illuminated the space, creating a mystical and expansive atmosphere. It was a boundless space where thousands of alien civilizations merged in a solemn ceremony. Each species, each civilization, proudly boasted about their achievements, telling stories of peace, prosperity, and their constant development. It was a space of pride, yet in Torian Vexa's eyes, it was nothing more than a dull spectacle, unworthy of attention. Torian Vexa, the mighty warrior from the Vexa Empire, sat among the crowd, his cold, emotionless gaze fixed on the proceedings. The creatures around him appeared fragile and weak, beings who seemed unfamiliar with the true concept of survival. They bragged about civilizations without war, without great challenges, only tales of smooth technology and peaceful harmony. In Torian's view, these civilizations were nothing but entities living in the shadows, unaware of the real cost of blood, sweat, and tears. They had never known the harshness of war, death, or the struggle for survival in unforgiving environments. Torian couldn't help but feel disdain rise within him, like an ember smoldering in his chest. A warrior from the Vexa Empire, a place where beings lived in worlds ravaged by natural disasters, where only the strong and resilient could survive, could never understand the dullness and ease of these civilizations. These alien species only knew of the development of soft, adaptable technology that could easily thrive in peaceful conditions. But Torian, with the instincts of a warrior, knew only one thing: life was earned through each battle, each brutal victory. The lights from the surrounding technological devices reflected off the faces of the creatures. But what caught Torian's attention was the stark contrast between his technology and theirs. These beings used devices that were gentle, flexible, designed only to endure the stability of peaceful worlds. Meanwhile, the Vexa Empire, where Torian hailed from, possessed superior, powerful technology crafted from durable materials like steel, stone, and special alloys. The war machines of the Vexa Empire, the mighty warships, and high-tech weaponry were symbols of strength and unyielding combat ability. Torian's contempt deepened as he watched these aliens bask in their accomplishments, oblivious to the fact that they existed in worlds without true challenges. Every creature in this hall was merely part of a larger system, where all living conditions were controlled, and the struggles they faced were minor inconveniences in their lives. Meanwhile, Torian and the Vexa Empire had endured brutal wars, fierce survival battles. Their lives had never been easy. Each warrior in the Vexa Empire fought not just for survival, but to protect the harsh world they called home. The soft sounds of the ceremony only intensified Torian's discomfort. Every praise for peace, every celebration of the achievements of these species only highlighted the difference between them and his empire. The Vexa Empire had no place for weakness or laziness. Every warrior was a part of a living body, fighting not only to survive, but to protect the unforgiving world they called home. Torian didn't need to hear anymore. He had witnessed enough of these civilizations boasting about their shallow victories. But what they could never understand was that true strength did not come from peace and ease. True strength came from the battles, from what each being had to overcome in their own life. And that was something Torian always believed in, that humanity and the Vexa Empire would always be the greatest warriors in this universe. When it was Elara Quinlan's turn, the representative of humanity, to stand up from her seat, the entire hall suddenly fell into a surprising silence. Elara was not like the creatures Torian had encountered before. She was not fragile, not weak. On the contrary, she exuded strength and resilience. Her sleek black hair glistened under the light from distant stars, and her sharp, unwavering eyes reflected an unshakable determination. With every step she took, it was as though the ground itself had to yield to her presence. Her long coat, made of an unknown material, but undoubtedly incredibly durable, reflected a silvery sheen like that of a spacecraft's hull, strong enough to withstand the harshest environments. This human representative was not a fragile being like Torian had thought. The sturdiness in her every movement made every species in the hall pause for a moment. Watching her intently, Torian couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, surprised by her appearance. This woman, from her posture to her demeanor, reflected an indomitable spirit, completely different from the weak species he had seen before. However, despite the impressive display, Torian still harbored a feeling of disdain. He did not believe that humanity could truly be a worthy opponent, no matter how remarkable she appeared. Elara stood before the council with absolute calm. She was neither rushed nor showed any signs of fear. Her long hair fluttered in the space, creating a scene reminiscent of a warrior standing firm amidst a storm. She placed a holographic projector on the table, gently pressed a button, and immediately, light from the device reflected a different world onto the vast space in front of them all. The image, projected onto the screen, showed vivid scenes from Earth. Natural disasters, brutal battles, and the devastation humanity had faced throughout its history. Tornadoes ravaged the planet. Violent explosions destroyed entire cities, and bloody wars were fought for survival. The land cracked open, water flooded, and from the ruins, humanity rose, adapting and developing, while the alien species around her continued to watch closely. Torian felt a shift in his mind. These were scenes he had never imagined, images he had once thought impossible on the worlds humanity inhabited, a world where humans had faced death and the brutality of their own planet, and yet they never gave up. Elara continued to display more vivid images of war, of the terrifying weapons humanity had invented. Enormous war machines, fighter jets soaring through the sky, and explosions that shook the very planet. But through all these images, one element stood out: the resilience of humanity, their survival in situations that seemed impossible. Torian observed, feeling a strange sense of respect, though the disdain within him hadn't completely faded. The story Elara brought, tales of humanity battling not only external enemies but their own limits, was a lesson in inner strength that Torian could not ignore. Whether in war or in the face of disaster, humanity stood firm, fighting not just to protect themselves, but to safeguard the very survival of their civilization. The disdain in Torian's heart slowly faded, replaced by curiosity and confusion. There was no denying that humanity had overcome challenges that even Torian couldn't have imagined. And as the light from the holographic projector dimmed, the final images from the presentation, depicting humanity's creativity and resilience, left a deep impression in Torian's mind. Elara continued her story, her voice firm and persuasive. She moved on to the next stages in humanity's development, beginning with the early days of survival. The screen lit up, directing all eyes toward a wild ancient period where primitive tribes fought to survive. AI-simulated images appeared in the space. Dark forests, vast deserts, and rivers flowing fiercely, where humans had to rely on the power of nature and their intellect to survive. The scene shifted to dangerous hunts, where men and women, clad in animal pelts, armed with crude weapons like arrows and spears, hunted massive beasts such as mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. They battled the wild, constantly facing dangerous predators. It was not just a fight for survival against animals, but a battle with themselves, with hunger and the fear of the night. These images, vividly created by AI, illustrated the resilience and strength inherent in each human being, a spirit that never backed down from challenges, no matter how great the dangers before them. Each hunting and fighting scene was recreated in high detail, showing humans' perseverance and meticulousness, a survival strategy that not every species could master. Next, the screen changed, transitioning to scenes of brutal wars. Images of clashes between ancient empires appeared, where crude weapons gradually gave way to more sophisticated tools. Sharpened spears, bronze shields, and chariots carrying soldiers moved across vast battlefields. Mighty armies lined up, preparing for deadly engagements, where every attack was a matter of life and death. The disheveled hair of the warriors, their sweat-soaked and bloodied faces, the sounds of battle cries, and the clashing of steel and iron filled the air. AI continued to portray the early battlefields, depicting fierce battles between empire, with primitive yet terrifying and brutal weapons. However, it was through these wars that humanity learned to fight, organize, and lead, laying the foundation for the rise of great empires in the future. Torian felt a tension within himself as he watched. Those images made him pause and reflect. He saw humanity's persistence, but he couldn't understand why they chose that bloody and painful path. Victories, mighty empires, seemed to come at the cost of destruction and devastation. To him, war was inevitable, a necessary means to assert the power of a civilization. But humans seemed to have a different approach. Then, the screen shifted to another scene, depicting modern warfare, advanced weapons, Massive war machines, fighter jets soaring through the sky, ballistic missiles launching high, creating enormous plumes of smoke. Everything moved rapidly, relentlessly, and without pause. A scene of destruction, but also proof of humanity's adaptability and creativity. Humans had evolved from the most primitive weapons to modern warfare technologies capable of destroying entire planets in an instant. AI displayed these war scenes with unprecedented realism. From precision missile launches to aerial assaults supported by high-tech equipment. Images of nuclear bombs, radioactive storms, and cities obliterated in seconds left the entire hall in silence. No one could deny that, despite all the pain and losses, humanity continued to exist and progress. They could destroy themselves, but they could also rise again from that very destruction. Torian watched these scenes with a complicated expression. He couldn't deny humanity's resilience, but he couldn't comprehend their determination in wielding the power of war. Each victory they achieved was proof of their persistence and unceasing creativity. Yet it was also a warning of the destructive force they could unleash. Ilara leaned forward, her eyes glowing under the dim, ethereal light of the conference room, where the atmosphere was thick with silence. She had spoken of war, of survival, but now she was about to reveal a darker, deeper secret at the heart of humanity. She smiled gently, yet her gaze was sharp, as if she knew these words would change the way everyone in the room saw things. But, Elara continued, her voice growing quieter, our greatest enemy is not the alien species, but ourselves, humans. We have failed to control ourselves, and throughout history, we have continually destroyed ourselves through endless wars. The room seemed to go still. All eyes turned to her as the holographic screens slowly dimmed, replaced by images of the bloody conflicts in human history. The battlefields seemed to come alive through the light of AI technology, dark scenes from the darkest days in the past. The first image that appeared was from World War I, soldiers in heavy uniforms, their faces filled with confusion, crossing fields filled with smoke and bomb craters. The sound of gunfire, the war cries echoing from everywhere. Mud and blood covered the ground, and there seemed to be no escape for the people trapped there. Each scene, created by AI, seemed to recreate the brutality of humanity itself. Self-inflicted disasters born from greed and conflict. The next scene shifted to World War II, a relentless bombardment engulfing cities, bombs falling and obliterating everything they touched. Cities crumbled, ruins piled up. Not only the battlegrounds, but the people, families, and civilizations themselves. The earth was torn apart, and within seconds, the works of civilization were reduced to ashes and sorrow. Torian watched these images, a sense of confusion rising within him. He had never seen such scenes, not because he hadn't witnessed devastation, but because it was humanity itself that had caused these catastrophes. Why? The question echoed in his mind. Why did humanity choose this path when they could choose peace? His logic couldn't comprehend it. As a warrior, Torian had fought countless battles. But human wars were something different, not for protecting civilization or territory, but because of internal conflict, a primal instinct they couldn't control. The hologram continued, shifting to another scene, the emergence of the war machines that humanity had created in their unchecked creativity. Gigantic machines, equipped with destructive weapons, autonomously moved across battlefields, obliterating everything in their path. This was not a war between species. It was a war of humanity's own making. Machines with no emotion, no mercy, only destruction driven by human command. Torian sat motionless, unable to take his eyes off these scenes. Each machine, each image was like a warning to him. These creations were not technology meant to protect civilization, but things born to destroy it. Humanity had created weapons they could not even control themselves. Ilara's words struck deep in Torian's mind. We are our own worst enemy. We have created tools, weapons, and even war machines that we cannot control. And that is why we must learn to live in peace before it is too late. Torian sighed, feeling a weight pressing on his mind. He didn't know if humanity could change, if they could learn from their own mistakes, or if they would continue to repeat endless wars. The guilt and helplessness within him grew stronger. For the first time, he felt empathy, but also a deep sense of concern for the future. The light from the stars shone through the windows of the conference room, reflecting off the sleek glass surfaces of the advanced technology, creating an atmosphere that was both mystical and unfamiliar. Torian Vexa sat there, a towering and solid figure, his eyes seeming to pierce through the deep shadows of the universe. His heart pounded, and his thoughts were chaotic as he faced the question the entire universe was waiting for. Would he choose the path of alliance with humanity, or continue to fight for his empire? Ilara Quinlan stood opposite him, her breath like a gentle breeze in the silence of the space. She seemed unaffected by the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. But her gaze never wavered, locking directly onto Torian's, her eyes burning bright like stars in the dark sky. She said nothing, but her silence spoke louder than words, as though she were waiting for Torian to give his final answer. Torian took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure, but inside, a fierce storm raged. Images of war, painful memories of the Vexa Empire's battles, invasions, sacrifices, and the victories he had earned all surrounded him. But now, in the light of the truth Ilara brought, all of it seemed like a torrential rain washing away his pride and arrogance. Humanity was not just a survivor of battles. They were creators. But that very creativity had brought them to the brink of self-destruction. Can we, humans, survive without destroying ourselves? Ilara said, her voice soft but sharp, as if each word were a beam of light cutting through the darkness of war and destruction. Torian did not answer immediately. A tidal wave of emotion surged within him, tearing apart his thoughts. The past of war, where his empire fought relentlessly, Was it a part of the curse humanity would face? Could humanity continue to create, to progress, without harming themselves, as his empire had done in the past? This question felt like a sharp blade, stabbing into the doubts of Torian's soul. A heavy machine, an AI device in the meeting room, began to project vivid images of future decisions. 3D simulations appeared on the screen, displaying explosions of destructive weapons, massive clouds of dust swallowing entire cities and wiping out lives in the blink of an eye. The war machines, like giant monsters created by humans, continued to devastate the cosmos. No one could control them. Was this the future humanity would face if they couldn't control their creativity? The AI system coldly offered predictions, with each number, each event unfolding in the universe, as though it were judging humanity's actions. The consequences of creating war technologies without control would be extinction, not just for humanity, but for the entire universe. Torian stared at these images, a sense of guilt and helplessness swelling within him. As a warrior, he had faced countless enemies, but never had he felt a decision weigh so heavily on him. Could he trust humanity, those he had once considered weak and unworthy of a warrior like himself? This question made Torian doubt himself, unable to find the right answer. "Torian," Elara said, her voice gentle, but each word struck like a blow to his mind. "I can't guarantee that humanity won't destroy itself, but I believe we can change. We can learn from our past and take a different path. Will you give us a chance?" Torian stood up, looking down at Elara. In that moment, everything around him seemed to fall still. The light of the stars shone through the windows, reflecting off his metal armor. He was at a crossroads. One path was to continue his fight, to continue defending the Vexa Empire, and the other was to walk with humanity, accepting change, even though the future was uncertain. Torian felt an invisible force pulling him toward the dangerous path, a path he had never thought he would have to take. This decision could change not just humanity's fate, but the fate of the entire universe. "We will fight together," Torian finally said, his voice strong but with an ominous tone, as if he were accepting a challenge he couldn't yet foresee. The light of the stars outside seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the monumental decisions that both humanity and Torian had to face, a step that no one could turn back from. In the vast expanse of space, the light from thousands of stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before, casting its glow upon the alien beings and civilizations gathering in the grand hall where Torian and Elara stood facing each other. The breathtaking scene of space, with distant shimmering planets and strange gaseous clouds, painted a perfect picture of the universe's mystery. Torian and Elara stood before the council, facing the gaze of hundreds of alien species, each harboring a sense of respect and caution toward the two individuals representing the fate of humanity. Torian no longer held the disdain he once did. The scars of war, the battles for survival, were no longer the only things that existed in his mind. His eyes, meeting Elara's, no longer bore the coldness but understanding and empathy. Yet, deep within his soul, there remained a great, unanswered question. Can humanity, with all its creativity and instability, truly change, or will it self-destruct? Elara stood beside him, the sparkling light reflecting from the technological devices around them. She remained calm, but in her gaze, there was also a quiet resolve, as if she knew this journey was never going to be easy. Humanity's decision, like a double-edged sword, could lead to salvation, but it could also mean their own demise. Every choice, every step forward would decide not only the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire universe. The AI systems in the room began to emit signals from distant space stations. The screens projected simulations of cosmic data and signals that humanity had sent out centuries ago. These cosmic rays, according to AI analysis, could indicate the presence of other civilizations, or simply be the meaningless signals of a species desperately searching for help. This data raised a profound question. Could humanity solve the problems it had created in the universe? Or would it face loneliness, abandoned among the cold stars? As the alien species around them attempted to analyze and evaluate the data, Torian stared at the light and felt the weight of fate bearing down on him. His feelings, though transformed toward humanity, were still not strong enough to overcome all doubts. Would Elara and the next generations of humanity overcome the very challenges they had imposed upon themselves? Or would they follow the same path as the species before them, leading to an inevitable, unavoidable extinction? A gentle breeze swept through, carrying a cold sensation, as if the universe itself reflected the doubts within Torian's heart. And then, the unspoken question echoed across the vast space. Would humanity be the key to unlocking the future of the universe? Or just another species lost to self-destruction and forgotten in time? The AI screens continued to shift, providing new signals from distant stars, but the answer still eluded them. Beneath the dim light of the cosmos, Torian and Elara stood there, both as part of an unresolved question, and perhaps forever a mystery in this moment.